Ahoy there, my friends. One of these days, I'm going to get it so that we'll be able to smoothly transition from the animation video, the stream is about to begin, to my screenshots. One of these days, I'll transition smoothly. It'll happen.
Yet to happen.
Sooner.
Sure.
Sooner rather than later.
I'm glad you believe in yourself.
Welcome to Star Wars Transition. Star Wars Transmissions. I'm apparently high on goofballs right now. Your boy Dan, with me, Danny Girl.
Hey.
To break down episode 9 of Andor. What a spectacular episode. From start to finish, one of probably my favorite episodes of the season. Spectacular episode. Before we delve into episode 9, because we're going to full dive into this episode. This is your spoiler warning. You know the drill. Get those booty cheeks out of here. Go watch episode 9 if you have not, because we're going to be breaking down everything Andor episode 9. So Danny Girl, what was your overall take on this episode?
Oh man, it was a spectacular episode, but it was very heavy. There was a lot of kind of, I don't want to use the word terror, but it really was a lot of terrifying information that we learned as to what lengths the Empire or the cogs in the Empire are willing to go and how easily they do a lot of shitty things, to justify their means and to get what they want.
Terrifying is a good choice of words. I mentioned this to you. I watched the episode
I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
2 full times through. And then kind of like a third time getting screenshots. And I'm a huge fan of dystopians. Love dystopian novels, love dystopian movies. Andor has depicted the Empire in a way that no other Star Wars entry has, in such a dystopian way that I absolutely love. And terrifying is a good choice of word, because that's how we should feel when viewing the Empire, this totalitarian, dystopian regime run by the Sith, and what they do to maintain their version of peace and order in the galaxy. It's terrifying. Imagine being a citizen, right? We learned last episode with Cassian, he just was in wrong place at the wrong time. Now he's imprisoned in this complex, and there does not seem to be light at the end of the tunnel for him. It's terrifying.
Absolutely. Yeah, this episode was wild.
Saint Walker, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the chat. Let's transition. Let's start with our boy Cassian. And we sadly, we missed 2 weeks of Andor because our beloved Yankees were in the postseason before they got bounced. And then last week, Tales of the Jedi.
I was going to say, did we really miss 2 weeks?
2 weeks,
yes,
yeah.
Okay, 2 weeks since, yeah.
So last week, Cassian, as I mentioned, he was picked up by the Empire, imprisoned, and now we find him back on Narkina 5, the Imperial prison complex on the water moon Narkina 5. And we see in this prison, I think there's 7 levels of the prison. And essentially there's 2 shifts for each level. There's a day shift and an evening shift. And basically all these prisoners do is go and work, go to sleep, rinse and repeat. And they're building one item.
Right. They're assembling one item. What that one item does, what it's used for, we don't know. We can guess, but we have no idea.
I've got some thoughts. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But that's definitely something that I want to talk about, because like you said, they're just assembling one item, and that's it. and they're mass producing it, and the Empire is basically boot on their necks to get them to drive up production to insane levels.
Absolutely. I don't know if we know this. Do we know, is there a different assembly for every level? Or are they all doing the same?
That's an excellent question. We do not know. We have not visited any other level. So we don't know if they're all building the same exact thing or if they're not. I'm torn. Well, since we're there, let's talk about that. Let's instead of holding it off, we're there. What do you think they are, whatever they're assembling, what do you think it's for?
I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder because I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you were. Something for the Death Star. I mean, there's plenty of projects. Clearly, we know that there are plenty of projects going on, but what is at this giant level that's going to need hundreds, thousands, potentially millions of items that are all the same?
To me, it's one of two things. Weaponry, some sort, I don't want to say munitions. When I say maybe material vehicles, so starships, TIE fighters. One thought that came to mind, I don't think the timeline adds up, but TIE Defender, right? We know Thrawn's project. I'm pretty sure the timeline doesn't add up, but like that maybe could be something. But I think if it were to be a starship, it's probably mass producing something for TIE fighters or Star Destroyers. But I think the most likely scenario is that they are mass producing something for the Death Star, especially when you consider two things. This series is tied to Rogue One, which was all about the construction of the Death Star and getting those plans to the Rebel Alliance. On top of the fact that the Death Star is what kills Cassian, and having that like,
Ooh. Yeah.
But
Poetic
also,
justice.
what we find out at the end of the episode, they are not leaving. The Empire will not let them leave. Why would the Empire not want these prisoners to leave? What would be the reason why they wouldn't want the outside world to know what's going on within these prison walls?
Oh, what are you thinking, Dan, other than the Death Star?
The Death Star, right? They've done everything they've gone to large feats to conceal the Death Star from the populace. The vast majority of the Empire has no clue that the Death Star is being built, right? So what other reasons could there be for the Empire essentially not allowing these people to leave this prison at any point in time?
Ramping up production, ramping up, making sure that everybody's in here, doubling everybody's sentences.
So
cheap labor,
yeah. And we hear Cassian at one point mention to Kino, who is the manager of Unit 52D, Kino Loy, telling Kino that, I believe he says Melshi was right, we're cheaper than droids. They could replace us more easily and we're cheaper.
Yeah.
They're essentially slave labor, man.
Oh, absolutely. That's disgusting.
So one thing I want to touch on, because right, the way that the Empire, I love how this prison is depicted. It is, again, I'm going to steal your word here, terrifying, because to some extent the guards really aren't doing much. I shouldn't say to some extent. By and large, the guards really aren't doing a lot. It's just that ever presence and threat of violence that is essentially keeping the prisoners in line. And so we see this scene where I think it was table 1. They were they produced the least amount of these objects. And so they got fried, and they just go and stand on this square, and then the Empire fries them. The guards fry them.
And let everybody else watch. So again, they're showing just a reminder. You watch this every day. If it's not you, it's your colleagues, your coworkers, the people who you're living with all day long, every day, and working with. They're the ones you're gonna watch get fried right there.
I love too just the voice of that you hear in that speaker.
Disembodied voice.
Yeah, like a very robotic, disembodied voice that just again just really reminded me of other dystopian films.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the most that we really see, because this, I think you caught the screenshot like right before they really started electrocuting the
Yeah.
folks on the square. I really think it's interesting. We saw it last episode when Andor got there the first time. Like, we really saw the physicality and what it does to their bodies when they do get fried. And we haven't really seen it. We know that it's happened. We've heard that it's happened. And this is just kind of like the briefest glimpse. But I do kind of like that they haven't felt the need to show us again. We just know and remember how terrifying it was the first time.
That's a great point. And I think that kind of, I wonder if that was, it had to have been a choice. And I think it speaks to just the fear, that violence that is instilled in these prisoners, that there's that constant threat of being absolutely fried at any point in time at the discretion of your prisoner or your guards. It's, again, this episode especially really made me feel the dystopian nature of the Empire in a way that I really haven't felt in other Star Wars shows, movies, even novels or books. I think this especially these scenes in the prison have really exemplified the dystopian nature and the totalitarian nature of the Empire.
And just how truly evil and insidious it really, really is.
Yeah. And Cassian is aware, right, that most likely he's not getting out, or he wants to shorten his sentence. And so he's planning his escape from this facility. And I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of this is. I'm assuming we're going to find out once we see the breakout scene, because we know that's coming. It looks like he's trying to saw this pipe in half, like maybe it's an exhaust pipe or a water pipe.
No idea. I don't know. No clue. But clearly he's trying to put it into motion because he knows it's going to take a while to get all the pieces in place.
Yeah, because we don't know how much time has gone by from last episode to this time, because you see he's really acclimated to being in prison. He has developed relationships with multiple prisoners, so we don't know how much time has lapsed since episode 8 to episode 9. My thought it'd be weeks, months, not sure.
Well, it's at least 30 days, because we saw 30 days go by in the first, or 30 shifts in the last episode.
Oh.
Yes, it was from 2,189 down to 2,159.
Oh, that's a good catch. I didn't, and that my thought it was going to be a couple of months in between the episode, so that tracks. Past
that, so I would say then at least, and like you said, how integrated he seems to be at this point, how comfortable he seems to be with people, I would say at least.
So Saint Walker says, I wonder if there's something in the food that might make prisoners' health worse. Wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if they're putting something in the food to make them more docile, something in the food to...
My thought would be maybe more docile. I don't know, because they do. You want to keep your workers.
Yeah,
you want to keep them healthy enough to be productive.
Yep. My thought is maybe not worse, but docile, right? Because like you said, you want them to be productive. They're a cheap source of labor relative to probably the cost of maintaining this facility. Their labor is probably hand and foot turning over, earning the Empire. It's a good return on investment, essentially. So my thought would be, it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if they're putting something in the food. If it would be something to keep them docile. Would be my thought, because essentially, right, we learned they're basically just getting like gruel
with no taste, no flavor, no nothing. It's just like,
my god,
yeah, right.
Disgusting.
The worst oatmeal ever.
Oh,
in a tube.
Absolutely disgusting. And not only is Cassian carving into a pipe, sawing at a pipe, but we see him speaking to this gentleman here. I don't think we've learned this individual's name yet. If we have, I didn't catch it. But essentially, they're keeping an eye on the guards as they're coming in, trying to observe as much as they can. And I'm trying to remember, I think they mention in this scene that the elevator is not electrified.
Yes. Yeah, that's
And
when I
that
talked about it.
if they stop the elevator halfway, they could get on, take his weapon, incapacitate him, and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think this also goes to like how much time really has passed. I really think it has been more time than maybe
Yeah.
even more guessing, because you figure you're not really interacting with people from the other tables unless you're doing it at night,
Yeah.
which you're not really don't have a lot of time when you're getting off the floor and going into your bed. So whatever small, I mean, the fact that they're trusting each other with this information, talking about what's electrified and not, that's a lot of trust. Know that your bud's going in the bathroom to go saw a pipe
You
and
think
keeping watch for him.
think about how awful it must be. You wake up every day and you go to work, right? There's the day shift and the night shift. So whatever shift you have, right? You wake up, you work, they're probably working like 10, 12-hour shifts, something
12.
ridiculous. It's 12, right? So you're working 12-hour days, you go to sleep and and then you get right back to it the next day. Like, could you imagine that every single day, nonstop? That's got to be absolutely not only just mentally and physically exhausting, but also maddening. Soul crushing.
Sucking.
Yeah. Ugh. And as as Cassian is making these plans with his fellow inmates, we get this interesting scene where they're leaving their shift. The night shift is coming on, and all of a sudden the lights go out and you see there's a whole bunch of confusion. Don't know what's going on, but we learn essentially the prisoners are able to communicate with each other using some sort of like sign language.
Mm-hmm.
It appears like it's kind of like a makeshift sort of sign language.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Right. And we learned from Kino, I don't remember if it was in this scene or later on, because we get a couple of scenes on this like bridge where essentially the levels are all communicating. So it could take a week from level 1, whatever is said in level 1, to eventually get up to level 5. There could be that time, and information could be lost, right? That game of telephone, right? There could be a lot of things lost in translation, but essentially they're getting word that something happened on level 2. Don't know what exactly it was. We do find out what it is, and it's freaking horrible. And Cassian knows, all right, this is obviously bad. This is you use the word cog in the machine. This is a well-oiled machine that operates essentially on a 24/7 schedule. They're just churning out an assembly line of products. It's highly unlikely that the power would just go out suddenly for no reason. So Cassian is hip to what's going on. He knows something bad has happened, even though Kino does not want to admit it. And so when they're in their cells later on, Cassian is trying to get information from Kino, and Kino wants no part of it. He's just trying to keep his hands clean. He's trying to do his time so he can get out. What did you say? He's got like what, 2,000 something shifts? I can't remember.
Does. I mean,
how many does Kino have? Do you remember?
Well, let's see. It's either 2 or 3. I can't tell.
217?
17 is my 17, 317.
Oh, good. Yeah, good catch. I totally missed that. So 217 shifts he's got left. So less than a standard year. And he just wants to do his time, do his bid, get out the clink. Doesn't want to listen to Cassian because Cassian is trying to get information from him to help his plan. And he knows, right, that Cassian is trying to make these plans.
Yeah, and he knows it's going to be trouble. So he wants no part in it. He just wants to get his head down and get out.
You had mentioned it when you were watching this episode that you wondered why the episode was called Nobody's Listening.
Oh, yeah. I was like, that's seems out of out of place from what the other episode names have been. And then once I figured it out, it was great.
Which, isn't that kind of horrifying? Going back to what we talked about, the guards aren't listening. The guards, to some extent, are not paying attention to what they're doing at all. And this machine still runs like a well-oiled machine. And they have them, the threat of that electrocution, the threat of that violence has these prisoners in line doing their bidding.
I don't know if did you check your Twitter before we started?
No.
Okay. I'm going to bring this up then because I saw this on Twitter and I thought it was amazing. It was a side-by-side of 4 pictures, 2 pictures from this, 2 pictures from Rogue One. And this one is where Cassian's yelling at the end, like, nobody's listening. And the other 2 pictures are from Rogue One, where Jyn asks, do you think anybody's listening when they're broadcasting the Death Star plans? He's like, I do. They're listening to us. And I just thought that's
awesome.
So cool.
Tony Gilroy, the writers of this series, have done such a spectacular job. So Saint Walker says, I think Kino is going to sell out Andor. I don't know. To me, the way the episode ended, it seems like Kino finally understands the reality of his situation, that there is no getting out.
I think he's ready to bash some skulls.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to help Cassian escape. He's going to be a part of the crew that's going to help Cassian escape. I think he's going to wind up dying because we don't see him in Rogue One.
I mean, yeah, as soon as they had that exchange, that final scene of the episode, I was like, yeah, he's turning. He's gone. All right, Kino.
Billy Boy, can you please explain ending? Oh, we're getting there, my friend. We're almost there. We're going to be kind of jumping around the episode, but we're sticking with Cassian's part of the story for right now for this discussion. So we're almost there.
Yeah, you did it in arcs this time.
Yeah.
I like it.
I wanted to break down our discussion in characters. So we're going to talk about Cassian, part of the story, and then we're going to move on from there. So let's continue on. Because the one thing I mentioned this to you earlier, when I was, after I'd watched the episode and was taking screenshots, I was making the screenshots, and I was watching the episode in chunks. Basically, I was watching Cassian's story play out. Then I watched Dedra Meero's story play out, which was kind of cool. I would totally recommend people going back and watching the episode in that way. That's not something I typically do, but it was kind of fun to see Cassian, to watch the entirety of Cassian's story, then go back, watch Dedra's. Kind of fun. Anyway, the episode and what we see for Cassian, it only takes place over a matter of like 2 days or something like that. It's only a handful of days that Cassian's story is playing out. And so we're back to next day's shift, and they're finally starting to get some word about what happened on level 2, and Kino is, again, he's trying to, I don't want to stay trying to snuff out any conversation about it, but he kind of is. He doesn't want people making trouble. So he's like, we don't know what happened. Stop spreading rumors, kind of a thing. But essentially they're finding out that, hey, something bad has happened.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a short period of time left. He knows what can happen if guys start acting up. He needs to try to keep them under control, whether it's for him and for them.
Yep. And so you see this individual here. He's another manager. He's the manager on the night shift. Zinka, I believe is the name. Zinka, something like that. Essentially what he tells them is they were fried. 100 men on level 2 were killed.
All of level 2.
All of level 2. We don't know why yet, but we know that all the inmates on level 2 were killed, and it was 100 individuals, which is absolutely horrifying. And the look on their faces as he's explaining to them what they're told, that was insane. Right. And so that explains why there was that surge in power, right? Why the power had to go out, because they had to fry 100 people and to death Think about the amount of power that would need to electrocute 100 people to death.
It's terrifying.
Nathaniel, welcome to the chat. How you doing, homie? And now we're getting to the end of the episode. And man, this scene was kind of tough. And you had mentioned, I knew the outcome. You had mentioned like, ooh, Wilhuff is not long for this world. I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, I mean clearly he was in rough shape. And it's kind of interesting going back and rewatching the episode and knowing that this dude has a stroke. You could see it. Honestly, and those signs, you're like, oh my God.
That's kind of why I went back and watched that last scene again. I mean, it's a powerful last 10 minutes, or well, I don't even think it was 10 minutes long, but yeah, it's really sad.
Just working these people to death. And again, thinking about what Cassian said to Kino, that Melshi was right. We are cheaper than droids. We're cheaper to replace. How sad is that? These are sentient beings in the galaxy that the Empire is just
not care,
working them to death without a care in the world. And so we get this medtech, who he himself is another prisoner. He comes to check up on Wilhuff, and essentially he's like, this guy's had a massive stroke. There's nothing I could do about it. His fate, though, is he's lucky, because the fate that we have is going to be much worse. And essentially what this medtech tells them is that an individual, an inmate from level 4 was released. The next day, he was on level 2, and the inmates basically discovered that he was released the day earlier from level 4 and was put back into level 2. And because of that administrative mistake, they had to kill the entire level. So essentially what that means is the Empire, the guards at this facility, or whoever is in charge of this facility, they're cycling prisoners from one level to another. They're giving them that illusion that they are going to be able to be free. Once their number of shifts ends and they're supposed to be free, they're going to make them look like they're freed, and they're sending them right back to a different level.
I was going to say, I think they might even be sending them to a different prison.
They could. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the reason why
that's a great point.
My thought was because you have, like, you can see here, like, they can communicate through sign language through the floors. So
that's an excellent point.
Why would you put him in another level? They're going to just talk. So way,
that's the administrative mistake.
That he went back to the same
prison
instead of one of the other. Like, think back to last episode when they were figuring out where people were living, what planets people were from.
Yes.
Okay, so this day, this planet is going to go to that prison. Next day, it's going to be this prison. So that way they can keep cycling people through, and they're never going to cross paths.
How terrifying. That just makes me think, like, in our jobs, people make mistakes all the time, right? Like a stupid administrative mistake. And that's essentially what that was. Someone at their job just made a boneheaded mistake. And now, because of that, 100 people had to be killed. Horrible. So Billy asks, what's the point of the day counter? Essentially to give them hope, that illusion of hope, to make them work hard. That idea of, hey, if I work hard, if I keep my nose clean, I'm going to get out. I'll get out in 200 shifts and I'll be free, when that's not the case. Horrible. That is like an absolute insidious. And again, that to me is like, this episode made the Empire feel dystopian in a way that no other Star Wars entry has to this point, at least for me.
I agree. It just made everything, instead of like, I feel like sometimes like, okay, evil Empire, like I saw somebody describe it as like evil mustache twirling. Like, this just takes it to a whole more realistic level.
Yep.
That is.
I think that's a very good way of describing it, right? Like, we get that the Empire is evil. We know that from the first minute you watch A New Hope, right? You know that the Empire is evil. And, you know, you do get a lot of that insidious nature of the Empire in all of Star Wars content. But I think this episode has really done a fantastic job, and this series has done a fantastic job of just showcasing how crushing and oppressive the Empire is.
How it can be to the everyday people who are just trying to live their life in the galaxy.
And I know this is the point, right? And we mentioned this in other conversations, right? George Lucas, when he was creating Star Wars, part of his inspiration for the Empire was Nazi Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't help but think about Nazi Germany in this episode, and thinking about, I don't want to say I know this for a fact, but I think there were prisons where essentially Jewish prisoners were kind of like what we see here, keeping people in line. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I took a class in college, and I want to say I think I remember that being discussed, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it made me think of Nazi Germany.
I mean,
and I love that this is fantasy, right? This is a fantastical series set in this made-up galaxy, but I love that I'm watching this and it makes me think of real-world stuff.
I mean,
which is also kind of scary and horrible at the same time.
Industrial prison complex, anyone?
Yeah. But yes, Billy, work will set you free, right? So yeah, that thought of you work hard, you keep your nose clean, you're going to get out of here once your shifts are done. No, you will not. Which I don't think that's something that has been discussed in other Star Wars content before. We've gone to other prisons in other stories. I don't recall that being something discussed in other Star Wars
I don't
stories.
Think so. And I mean, I mentioned this to you earlier. For a show that people were not, maybe outside of our circle, that people were not originally clamoring for, like, this show has just above and beyond all of our expectations. Yeah.
I agree completely. It's been so good. The exposition in this series has been so good. The dialogue, just the writing in the series has been absolutely spectacular. And we'll still have to wait to see how the season ends. But right now, this is starting to become my favorite Star Wars series. As great as The Mandalorian is, the story, the exposition, the acting, the dialogue, everything about this series has been superb. I'm loving it. Any other comments you want to add about Cassian and his story in this episode?
Oh, I thought you had another picture left. Sorry.
Nope, just our med tech.
Man, I'm. There was right after this when there's a shot of Kino and
yes.
Andor.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome. And I just absolutely loved, like, you can see how Kino was really upset. He's really sad about Wilhuff. Like, clearly they've known each other for a long time. He cares. Even if he is hard, I think he does at least a little bit care for the guys that are on his floor. Andy Serkis is such a good actor. Like, you could just see, it was like a quick cutaway. He was upset, and then all of a sudden his face hardens, his eyes get steely, and he was just had like this resolve on his face that he is pissed.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up. I read this to you earlier. I put a poll up asking what people thought about the episode. Someone commented on that poll saying this episode was a 10 out of 10, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but essentially was saying I was incarcerated, and that was essentially a fear of mine that I would never leave, and I've been out of prison for 10 years, and I still have that fear of that nightmare of being incarcerated and never ever being able to leave. And seeing that switch in Kino, that realization that, oh my God, they're going to work us to death unless I team up with Cassian here or do something, was excellent. Andy Serkis, I'm so glad he's a part of this series. Oh,
he's wonderful. Yeah, his face just went from, he saw all of his hope slip away very quickly. and he knows what's going on now. He is really mad. That's why I think he's going to crack some skulls next time.
I think so too. And as Cassian is enjoying his stay in lovely Narkina 5, Dedra is trying to find him. Dedra Miro of the ISB is trying to find Cassian, because what I'm trying to remember, what name does he give? Is it
Keef?
Keef.
Not Grief Karga.
Is it Keef?
Keef. They kept.
I was gonna say Grief Karga, but that's from The Mandalorian.
Which I think of that every time. Like, why did they purposely do this? I don't know. His name is Keef.
Okay.
Cassian, also known as Keef.
She's our homegirl. Dedra Miro is trying to find Cassian. She has the lead. Essentially, the radio, I forget what she calls it. I think it's like a fractal radio unit that Bix was using to communicate with Luthen Rail, our homeboy Luthen. That was basically tracked, or that communication was tracked somehow, and they learn that Bix has been communicating with Luthen. They don't know who Luthen is at this point. In the episode, ISB just refers to him as Axis or the buyer. So they still don't know who the buyer is. They don't know that it's Luthen, but they know that Bix has been communicating with him because essentially her boss, Salman Pak, once the communication was tracked, they learned that, okay, it's in this location. This guy, we're going to interrogate this guy. They tortured him, and he sold out Bix. So now they're interrogating Bix. And one of the things I love about the casting in this series so far is they have casted some of the most punchable Imperial actors. Like this guy, I want to just like triangle choke him so bad. Her like skeleton looking assistant, Heert, Heert is how you spell his name. Heert, however you pronounce it. I want to triangle choke him every time I see his face. Just absolute, and it's a credit to, yes, Cyril too. But credit to the casting, credit to the actors who do a fantastic job of portraying these villainous characters in a way that is frightening, because this is someone, I mean, think about what this guy is telling Bix here. Essentially what he's saying to Bix is, because Dedra is telling her, essentially, if you're not going to give me what I want, we're going to torture you, and I'm going to turn you over to Gorst, is this guy's name. And he's explaining to her that basically the Empire went to this planet to set up I think it was a fuel refinery, and the natives of that planet, it was Dyson Frey, were not happy, and essentially the Empire just wiped them out. And the Empire recorded this for, I can't remember why he said that they recorded this, but just think about
when they were dying, they were basically like wailing. And
yes, but they were recording that, and that's how they discovered the wailing. They were recording them for some reason. I think it was for just to keep a record. I don't know. Either way,
also,
right?
That's insidious.
Right. Just think about how messed up that is. And during this process, after the fact, I should say, when several Imperial officers were reviewing the footage, they discovered hours later that these people were like keeled over. The sound that these sentient beings made when they were dying essentially is torturous.
I think it was the Imperial officers who were there doing the killing, because they started wailing. These beings started wailing. That's when they were the people who were no.
It was during the viewing of the recording. That's how they discovered this. Which I cracked myself up. I'm like, man, they start playing the recording, and it's just never going to give you up on repeat over and over again.
Oh my God.
Corny as hell. All right. So yeah, so essentially this noise is torturous. I love the sound editing too. You get like a small little glimmer of Bix hearing it, and she starts screaming it, and then it transitions to the sound of that tool that they use in the prison on Narkina,
like a drill.
That like drill. Yeah. Just so good. And here's her face, that look, that little like helmet. says the children wailing. Yeah, I can't. For whatever reason, I guess because I heard fuel refinery, my first thought was Purgles. When I went back, I looked it up on Wikipedia. So like Dizon Dizonites, this was their first mention in canon. But my first thought was, oh my god, is he talking about Purgles?
The children of this people.
Yeah.
Oh, were they? I think he said we're the worst. The ones that had the most effect.
Ugh. Dedra Meero, I can't remember the actress's name. She is spectacular. There's multiple points in the episode where like she does this like little smirk or this villainous kind of like gritting of her teeth, and I love her. She's a spectacular actor, and I love how just insidious she comes off in this scene, and just how vile and how much of a monster she comes off when she's torturing Bix, essentially.
Yeah, she's buying into the Empire, hook, line, and sinker. Not that we didn't think that she wasn't anyway, but this just the normal Tuesday torture, it's fine.
And to go back to before Bix starts getting tortured, one of the things that I wanted to ask you is she tells Bix that Salman Pak, they learned during his interrogation that years ago he was at this separatist meeting and he was asked to be a liaison for Ferrix. And he spoke to a woman.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. Could that be someone that we know?
That's what I'm really hoping for. My thought was maybe like Vel or Cinta, maybe somebody who's been around a little bit. I mean, to me, it sounds like with especially what we learn in a couple minutes in this episode, Vel, I feel like has the means to travel, to be all over the galaxy. So I feel, and can clearly, from what we've seen in previous episodes, she can transform herself. So that was my first go-to as to who he might have met.
Of course, my tinfoil ass was the first thought was like, oh my God, Ahsoka. Even though that's like completely pulled that out of my ass, tinfoil sort of a thought. But Vel is, I think, a much better educated guest than Ahsoka. But my first thought was, oh my God, Ahsoka. I'm waiting for Ahsoka or Thrawn. I was thinking about that today because I was like, all right, what are they building? Are they building TIE Defenders? Is this parts for the Death Destroyer? And I was like, oh my God, how sick would it be if we find out it's TIE Defenders and then Thrawn makes an appearance? And then I realized, I don't think the timeline is correct. But how great would it be to see Thrawn make an appearance?
Cool. My second option is not Kira, Kyla. Nope.
Clada?
Luthen's.
Clada. I think her name is Clada. Yeah, I think her name is Clada. That'd be cool. That would be great.
That's another woman who's definitely, I feel like, has been in it for a couple years, has been in it for a bit. And also very clearly transform, because I can tell you, I know I did not recognize her at first when she was all dressed up. And I know a lot of people on Twitter also had no clue who she was.
Yes, yeah. That's one of the things I've loved so far about this series. So now Dedra tortures Bix. She gets information and she reports back to Major Partagaz. Basically what Bix told Dedra is all of the gear that was sold to Luthen from Ferrix was essentially used, and that Luthen has a large network. So we learned that Cassian was stealing Imperial tech. She was selling it to Luthen. And they basically the Empire learns that, this checks out. The tech was most likely stuff that was stolen, that we can catalog. And that Luthen, as they refer to him as Axis at this point, has a large network. But he doesn't rely on any one network, which we learned from last episode, right? It's because this is all just different, various rebel cells. There's not one cohesive rebel unit working together. And that he's a tech supplier, basically, which tracks, right? We know that Cassian was stealing Imperial tech, giving it to Bix, and then Bix would contact Luthen so that she could sell it to him. So that's essentially, at this point, what the Empire knows. They're on to Luthen's trail. They just don't know who Luthen is. And I can't remember if it was episode 4 or 5 that Clada tells Luthen, we got to get rid of Cassian because he ties back to you. He's the thread that ties back to you. And we're seeing now how, Cassian is basically getting ISB on Luthen's trail.
Yeah, that's pretty scary for him.
I also like too that there was a mention of I mentioned to you that earlier, this episode, there was a lot of like information dump in this episode. I could totally see people getting confused because we learn in this conversation here in this scene that there was a piece of tech that was able to be traced back to a rebel cell associated with Maya Pei. And that was an individual that Saw Gerrera, who we saw in last episode, Saw Gerrera from the Clone Wars and from Rogue One. He ridiculed Maya Pei, calling him a neo-Republican. And that's when Luthen goes to, I can't remember the planet's name. They're like in a cave and he's talking to Saw. And
Two Tubes.
Yes, and our boy Two Tubes. And Saw's like, I don't want to work with Maya Pei. I don't want to work with Anton Krieger, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. He wants to do his own thing because in his mind, no one is taking it as far as it needs to go, essentially.
Oh, Saw is just...
More Forrest Whitaker and Saw. Love his inclusion.
He's just goes really, really, really hard in the paint.
The other issue here is that Bix essentially gave information that ties Cassian to Aldhani. Because she lets Dedra know that Bix returned to Ferrix 3 days after Aldhani with a bunch of money.
Oh, Cassian returned to...
Yes, what'd I say?
Bix?
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, that Cassian returned to Ferrix with a bunch of money. He what's his mother's name? I'm drawing a blank right now on his Ma Cassian. I think that's her official name, Ma Cassian.
Starts with an M.
I can't remember what it is. So yeah, Dedra's done a lot, and Partagas is, excellent work, Dedra. Doing great work.
Good job. Is this where they talked about the rebel with Anton Krieger?
No, that happens a little bit later.
Okay. But
initially, as we mentioned, right, Dedra is connecting Cassian to Aldhani. Partagas is not, he's skeptical at first, but essentially how Dedra convinces Partagas that Cassian was involved is when they were interrogating Bix. She had mentioned that he returned to Ferrix clean shaven. One of the guards or soldiers at the Aldhani garrison said that the individuals that did the heist, they were all clean shaven. They showed them a reference photo, and they said that resembles the person that took part in the heist.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hot
so
damn.
That torture works, apparently.
Screaming children. I mean,
our boy Qyburn. He'll always be known as Qyburn in my mind. Then we got the return of this scrub.
Cyril has turned into Stalker Cyril.
Absolute creep. So is he in love with this woman? Is he in love with Dedra? Does he have the hots for her?
He might think he is, but he's just a stalker creep.
He is an absolute
nutjob.
Fucking weirdo. He is such a weirdo, dude. I was thinking about this when we were watching this before we were getting ready to stream, and we got to the scene, and I was just thinking about, imagine going to work and some person is just sitting there waiting for you, and you find out that this person has been repeatedly going to where you work trying to speak to you. And also the fact that at one point Dedra tries to walk away from him and he grabs her arm very sternly.
Yeah, this is terrifying, but also in a whole different way.
Well, I mean, she mentions dude, what you're doing, I could have you imprisoned in the Outer Rim.
But she's not. A little bit of a
yes,
creep.
because I mean, I wonder if there's that part of her that I don't want to say necessarily sees the good in him, but maybe is like he's down for the cause. He has good intentions, so to speak. They're not necessarily good, but he's down for the cause. So, and he helped me and he gave me information that was helpful. So I'm not going to imprison him.
I know. I feel like she's weighing her options here. Like on one hand, like, yeah, Cyril's being a creep and he like, you really shouldn't be like stalking me. But at the same time, if she can use him, like keep him nearby, because maybe he's going to see something. Maybe he's going to come back with some more information. I don't know.
That's a great point.
Maybe she likes her ego stroked. Also, I don't know.
Could be. Billy says should have had him arrested and end up with Andor. What poetic justice would that be? He gets incarcerated and his cellmate is Cassian Andor. Our boy
God.
Keith.
Hilarious.
Let's get that comedy special going.
My God, like a buddy comedy?
Yeah, what is the dude? Something's Trouble? No, what's the comedy? I think it's from like the 80s or the 70s where it's like two people, they're like oil and vinegar, one's a slob, the other one's not, like tidy. I don't remember. But basically let's get that Star Wars comedy version of Star Wars comedy. Cassian and Syril imprisoned. But yeah, Syril is an absolute weirdo, and we learned that he got a promotion after his conversation with Dedra. He thinks it's because she basically helped him get that promotion, and she lets him know, all I did was say you have a clean bill of health, that's it, and you got that promotion. So she didn't really help him, but he seems to think so. And yeah, I think, I don't want to say he necessarily, I think he is enamored with her conviction.
I could see that. And yeah. All right, go ahead.
That's what I think. I think he is all about justice and doing what he thinks is right. Odd Couple, Billy. Thank you.
We don't know our 80s, 70s comedies.
I appreciate
very well.
it. That was the name of the show or the movie.
I mean,
Odd
it
Couple.
does make sense.
Literally made me stop what I was saying when I saw that. Thank you. So crap, where was I? So yeah, Syril, I think he's enamored with her conviction.
Clearly, he's never had a woman in his life before, so he doesn't know how to act. Not that that's an excuse, but man, Syril, get your act together.
This scene...
I have a quick question, though. Were these scenes flip-flopped in the show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because when Syril told his mom that he got a promotion, I was like, is he just saying this just to get his mom off his back? That was my first thought. I didn't think it was real. And then when he told Dedra...
I wonder, is this actually the case that he does have a promotion? So, yes,
he didn't.
This scene of I will continue to call him Syril. Our boy, it to me looks like he's eating children's cereal.
Oh, absolutely. With the blue milk? Yeah.
Right? My thought was he was telling his mother he got this promotion to get her off his back, because we learned that she's basically rummaging through his belongings. She treats him very much like a child. He's eating cereal. I don't think it's a coincidence that the creators of this series have him eating cereal at every single meal. Every time we see this dude eat, all he's eating is cereal. And as much as I love cereal, it's kind of, we tend to associate cereal with children, right? And you see how his mother treats him.
Also, just loved how he acted like such a little child when his mom was talking to him and he started slurping his milk.
Oh my God, I know.
I was like, oh,
Which it grosses me out every single time.
Well, yeah, but I just to drown out her voice. Like, yep, that's child. Great job.
Which I do have to say, it does make you. I don't want to say you sympathize with the guy, but like at the same time, you understand why he acts the way he does. He has a mother that belittles him and treats him like a kid, and then also guilts him into when he doesn't want to be around her, and rightfully so. She treats him like a piece of crap. So why would you want to spend time with your mother when she treats you like this?
But he's also still trying to get her approval.
Yes.
Oh man, what a mommy complex.
Right? Great writing. Also, oh my God, I just noticed that droid in the right corner. Did you notice that?
No, I did not. How cute.
I want to know that droid's name now. I had no clue that there was a droid in their house. I totally just saw that as we're speaking. I want to find out that droid's name.
All right, well, we'll
Does
do
he
that
clean up
afterwards.
Cyril's cereal for him?
I love how we keep calling him Cyril, and we botch it every time.
What's in his box of private belongings?
Ooh.
Little toys?
Thinking more nefarious. Well, not nefarious, just dirtier, but you know.
Star Wars pornography?
Oh my god, it's like one of the lounge singers. I don't know. I'm just picturing like a Twi'lek lounge singer.
Reminds you of the
Scantily
scene
clad.
of like, have you ever seen Spaceballs?
Long time ago.
I can't remember. They're like the version of Darth Vader in that movie gets caught playing with toys. That's Cyril. His mom like walks in on him playing with toys. That's what's in his little box. But yeah, you bring up an excellent point. I wonder if our boy even got a promotion. How many?
Said it to his mom and then he convinced it, and he's just going to use that line for the ladies in his life to try to make him seem more important than what he is.
Am I mistaken? Was there a mention of him only being in that job for about a month?
I feel like it's been a little bit longer than that. If the timelines are going to match up with Cassian.
Okay, so let's say it's 3 months. Let's say it's 6 months. How many places you work somewhere for 6 months and you get a promotion? Seems odd. Something seems amiss.
Is it a bit fishy?
I wonder if he is lying.
Maybe he.
That's a great catch. I think you might be onto something. I wouldn't shock me if he's lying, but at the same time, did he lie to get his way in the first 3 episodes so that he could get 3 more to hunt down Cassian? I'm trying to remember.
I mean, I feel like he was, if he didn't outright lie, it was definitely being
shady. All right, so
I mean, maybe he did. If he was causing all these problems, that Pedra got wind of what he was doing. Maybe he did get bounced. Like, you know what? We're sick of you looking for this Cassian guy.
Well, yeah, they definitely shit-canned him. But yeah, I think you may have a good point. I think he could be lying about his promotion. Moving on, now you brought up Anto Kreegyr. Essentially what we learn is our homeboy, a rebel pilot for Anto Kreegyr, was picked up. He was using an Imperial masking unit, which my guess is it's going to mask the drive signature of the ship. It was just a random checkpoint. He flashed his Imperial information very quickly and then jumped right into hyperspace. Or I don't think jumped because they wouldn't be able to track him.
Right.
Tried to take off. Empire thought that was suspicious, tracked him down, captured him. They found out he was a rebel pilot. Very quickly succumbed to Gorst, whatever his name is. That weirdo scientist, his interrogation methods, and basically spilled the beans. He works for Anto Kreegyr. Anto Kreegyr is planning this raid on an Imperial power station on Spellhouse.
Which, I mean, Anto Kreegyr, we should remember from last episode.
Yep, he was another individual that basically derided.
I was going to say was super offended that Luthen had even mentioned his name in his presence.
How dare you?
He's an ox.
Right? So I love, too, that they mentioned the pilot was on his way to Kafrene. Right, Kafrene, let me pull this up quickly. Ring of Kafrene I love that there's all these tie-ins to Rogue One. This is, Ring of Kafrene is where we see Cassian meet that gentleman, and I can't remember his name, but the guy he shoots in the back because he's got the messed up arm.
Oh, at the very beginning.
The very beginning, yes. Right, so the rebel pilot, going back to episode 9, this rebel pilot was heading to Kafrene, this Ring of Kafrene training outpost. That's where he was picked up. They found out, they tortured this guy. They find out Anto Kreegyr is planning this raid on this Imperial power station on Spellhouse, and they basically want to catch Kreegyr in the act, but they know they can't just let this guy go back to
Right.
Krieger, because he'll say, hey, I was captured, I was interrogated. They can't just kill him outright, because then that'll be suspicious and will spook Anto Krieger from continuing on with the raid. So what they decide is they're basically going to jack up this guy's ship to make it look, and kill him to make it look like it was just a mechanical accident, and let his ship basically float into Kafrene and then get picked up, so that Anto Krieger is none the wiser. How messed up is that?
It was wild how quickly they threw all of these suggestions out there, and Pendergrass was like, yep,
let's make it happen. We're gonna kill this guy, and we're gonna just, I think Dedra uses the word stage.
Run afoul was another.
Yep, she says we're gonna run the ship afoul. Just, yes, very quickly they go from trying to figure this out to, yeah, we're gonna murder this guy. It's a span of like a minute and a half to 2 minutes,
if that. Yeah, it was wild.
Right? Just think about how ridiculous and how horrible that is.
What, six people in the shot? Like, they were just like, yep, gone. Get it done.
ISB, man. Absolutely terrible.
Ix was right. They are the worst.
They are, right? And so, yeah, there's the Ring of Kafrene. They're going to let this guy's ship just float into Kafrene so that it gets picked up and towed, so that Anto Krieger is none the wiser. So I'm assuming we're going to find out. I don't know if we're going to meet Anto Krieger at some point. I'm assuming so, since we've heard his name, their name, I should say, be mentioned twice now.
Couple times, yeah.
We're probably going to meet this individual at some point. We may see the raid. We may see them. The raid. I'm assuming the raid's going to go bad. So at some point, we're probably going to meet Anto Krieger. As this is all going on, we come to our homegirl, Mon Mothma. Poor Mon.
She's
singing her song in the Senate. No one gives a hoot.
God, I loved how they just had people heckling her. Just like, long live the Empire. And yeah, people were not paying attention.
The Senate at this point is just a farce. It's an absolute charade. There's nothing being done. In part, Mon is doing this. She knows she's got to keep up appearances.
Mm-hmm.
So she's doing this to play the act of a senator. But I also wonder, is there a sense of hope in her? Or do you think that hope that she could do anything in the Senate has been completely squashed out of her?
I don't think it's completely squashed. I just think it's maybe at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Right now. I think she's by the end of her arc in this episode, she's definitely feeling very deflated.
Yeah, and I feel like she's starting to feel backed into a corner.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't feel like she's there just yet. I feel like she still has some hope that it doesn't have to come to, in her mind, war or open rebellion. I think she's trying to do everything in her power to avoid that, even though all signs are pointing to, homegirl, it's not.
Yeah.
What you're doing isn't working, at least in the Senate. And all signs are pointing to her eventually having to become part of an open rebellion, which we know does happen. But I really like you said, that you hear hecklers saying, long live the Empire. Like,
wild for a Senate session.
You see people walking out on her, these like Senate pods, the lights are going out. Yeah, just ridiculous. And then we learn her cousin's Vel.
I know. I love how her driver was like, your cousin's here. Like, cousin?
Yeah.
What's the cousin? And
Vel.
then pretty little rich girl.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Who convinced who to be a part of the rebellion?
I feel like Vel convinced Mon.
Had to be, right? Because look, Mon is terrified. Mon is not completely all in on the rebellion. She is doing things that are scaring her right now. She's absolutely frightened, especially once we get towards some of the next scenes. She's scared, definitely. She feels backed into a corner. So my thought is Vel probably brought her into the fold.
Yeah, I think Mon probably had these beliefs. Like, she definitely is full of hope and or maybe at one point was more full of hope and wants to believe in better things. But I feel like Vel was the one to bring her in. Like, got the means, you got the money. Let's do some good here.
I love too how you get at one point Mon telling Vel, hey, you need to just basically go out and be a spoiled rich person.
For a little bit.
Let the world know you're a spoiled rich person that could do whatever you want because you need to keep up that appearance so that people are not suspecting you of anything.
Right, because like you did go supposedly traveling for 6 months, but you were off the grid.
Yeah.
So is that really traveling?
And frickin' Perrin, this ass.
Homophobe.
Just, So you bring up a great point that it never dawned on me. Do you think he knows her sexual orientation?
He either knows and is just goading her, or he is totally clueless. So my thought is like, you can see, like, I don't think you have a screenshot, but like in this scene when Perrin's asking Vel about like, oh, aren't you going to go back and get a husband? Like, you're too old to get a husband. It's going to have to be a widower at this point. And you can see Mon in the background kind of like chuckling when they're talking about getting a husband.
Yeah, because what does Vel say to her? I say it in response to him. I can't remember. But yeah, you see as she's speaking, because Vel is completely out of focus. As she's speaking to Perrin, the focus is on Mon Mothma, and Mon is smiling.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mon knows that Vel is not straight. But I don't know about Perrin, honestly.
Do you think she does?
I think she does. I think based on that scene, she does.
It totally never even dawned on me to think, oh, he could be saying that as a jab because of her sexuality.
I'm going to go with he's a piece of shit all around, so I'm not giving him any kind of benefit of the doubt. He absolutely is going to... I'm going to go with he's doing a jab.
I mean, he's definitely... It could be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, right?
Sure.
Slinging barbs her way because of her sexuality and because of the fact that she's not married. Yeah. Either way, he's an absolute ass. And what sucks is he's got Mon's daughter on his side, brainwashed to his side.
Leda. Yeah, because didn't she made a comment of some kind too?
Because at this point, Perrin mentions, because Vel says she's going back to Chandrila for some sort of pilgrimage.
Chandrila.
So I don't know what that pilgrimage is exactly, but Perrin mentions Kalma, I think, is coming to meet with Mon, and Leda calls him Mon's old boyfriend.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that your teenage daughter is getting in on this Jade action. Please.
Yeah, because Perrin's talking dookie about Mon to his daughter. But just going back to, what we talked about with Mon, and I mentioned this to you earlier, think about this poor woman. She goes to work in the Senate and people are treating her like crap. She's not getting any work done because that's not the point of the Senate at this time. Senate's there not to get anything done. It's just there to keep up illusions that there's freedom in this galaxy when that's absolutely not. Which, crap, as I'm saying that, same thing with those prisons, right?
Yep.
That illusion of freedom. She has to put up this charade at work. At home, her home life is terrible. She's in a loveless marriage. Her child seems to despise her.
She doesn't have anybody around her she can trust, including her driver that kept getting replaced.
And she feels way in over her head with what she's doing with Luthen and in this early rebellion. She has to feel very isolated, very scared. I felt very sad for Mon after this episode.
Yeah, you could tell she was definitely afraid in her own way, in her own situation. Especially with, 400,000 credits that she needs to somehow account for and figure out what she's going to do with
because, what we learned, she speaks with our boy Tay Kalma, And he tells her that, hey, your withdrawal of 400,000 credit withdrawal of 400,000 credits is a problem. We need to paper over that, basically, and the only way we can do that is with a 400,000 credit deposit. And Mon is saying, I don't have that kind of money. If I did, I wouldn't be coming to you. I wouldn't need your help. What can we do? And because Tay is saying at this point it's not an issue, but very soon your finances are going to come under scrutiny, and at that point it is going to be a red flag, because they are essentially funneling money from her account, so her family fortune or her inheritance, to this. Basically, it's a shell foundation that she's using to help fund the rebellion. So what Tay tells her is, we need a Chandrillan banker, someone that has ties to the Treasury, has a relationship with the Treasury, has a business that is insanely massive. And the only person that meets that criteria is Davos Skulden, which we learn from our homegirl Mon is a thug of some kind, a criminal. So she is not pleased about this. So not only is she doing this life-threatening activity, these life-threatening activities for the rebellion, now because of what she's been doing, she is now being forced to have to work with criminals, because she has to come up with 400,000 credits. Tay is suggesting she take out a loan from this individual and use the guise of, hey, I'm a rich person, I want to avoid taxes. He won't care. He'll be none the wiser.
Right. And I feel like I'm kind of curious to see, or if we are going to meet this.
I think so.
Yeah. This thug. What, like, I feel it's just definitely, I feel like it's like a high end kind of person who, even if she's calling him a thug or them a thug, that is definitely, I feel like I'm just thinking like gangster. Like just some kind of like mafia boss.
That's my thought, is he's some sort of criminal on Chandrilla that everyone knows he's a criminal, but basically, even though his hands are dirty, they're kind of clean.
He probably pays them all off, or just, he can paper over lots of things, or just, pay people off, make things disappear, work the magic.
I'm watching the latest season of Peaky Blinders, and my first thought I'm like, oh, it's Tommy Shelby.
The joke is lost on me. I haven't watched that show yet.
Gotta get on the Peaky Blinders train, man.
I know.
But yeah, that's my thought, is it's that kind of criminal, is someone who on paper seems clean, but everyone knows they're not. They're a criminal. Yo, my man Brian, what is going on? Not caught up with the show, that's all right. Binge it this weekend. Hey, appreciate if you do, my man. Glad that you are able to join us. So yeah, Mon she's in the weeds now. She knows she is in trouble financially, and the only solution Tay has is setting up this meeting on Coruscant with Davos Skulden. I'm excited because I'm assuming we're going to see that next weekend. We got our cat Chloe. She just joined us. She hopped onto Danny Girl's lap.
The name is Davos?
Davos Skulden.
I love... God.
Our cat is getting all up in Danny's grill.
At butt time.
So I think that's a good spot to end it.
This episode was so good.
Oh, it was so good. It was so good. I like 9 out of 10 stars for me. I think the only way this episode could have been a 10 out of 10 for me, or it could have been any better, I should say, is if we got like Ahsoka or Thrawn or Darth Vader or some sort of like cameo appearance from a really big character. Either way, it was such a spectacular episode. I'm loving Andor. I'm hoping other people are loving Andor. I'm hoping others know that this show is freaking great, because it is every week. It's just been so freaking good.
It's been delivering on that spy thriller, espionage type premise that they told us about. I love how much more in depth we're getting with the Empire and just Star Wars in general. This is awesome.
I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. I love learning about all the things that the early stages of all the things that Mon Mothma, Luthen, Cassian were doing to build up the rebellion is dope. I can't wait. I'm really hoping we get to see some Star Wars Rebels folks.
My God,
appear in this series.
Still my heart. Yeah, I mean, we have 3 episodes left in this season. I mean, not that I want to go into a show being all kinds of anxiety ridden, but man, this show is so suspenseful. It's great.
So my boy Brian, the amount of boomers who make memes of Peaky Blinders versus the people who have actually watched it is way off. It's always some Facebook meme material. So Peaky Blinders, it's a good show. It's kind of hyperbolic. Like there's always something that goes wrong and somehow the characters figure out a way to weasel their way out of it. But still a very entertaining show. I would recommend it. I would recommend it to you, Danny girl. It's fun. The episode I was watching most recently, the ending of it, I told you, like, my heart was racing at the end of the episode.
Honestly, I'll probably watch it this winter. Maybe it'll be next on my list of shows to watch without you, because I always try to watch a show by myself.
Ain't gonna happen. If it's a show I want to watch, you ain't watching it without me, homegirl.
I know. I was so sad the other day. I wanted to watch Bad Sisters on Apple. Don't spoil it. And I started watching the first episode. Literally, Dan pulled I'm going to stand here for 40 minutes watching the rest of the episode.
Had no clue what she was watching. It was just like, I think I finished playing Halo. I'm like, let me go see what Danielle's up to.
You were still in your softball outfit.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Came home from softball. I'm like, oh, what's this she got going on here?
Stretching, and then you just stood there.
It was entertaining.
Like 30 minutes.
Now I'm like, now we're in deep into.
No, I want to watch.
You ain't watching it. Don't you dare watch it without me. But we like a lot of the same shows, which is dope. So that's a good way to end it. We're not even talking about Andor anymore. Thank you guys for joining. It's always awesome talking about Andor. Like I said at the start, Tales of the Jedi, our beloved but also soul-crushing Yankees, kind of put a monkey wrench into us streaming for Andor the last couple weeks, but I don't envision that happening. I think from here on out we'll be able to stream each episode as at that day that they premiere. So keep a lookout for those streams. Keep a lookout for us to release videos on the reg. Always dropping some videos on Star Wars related topics. Now's the time. If you haven't, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Also, let us know in the comments what you think about Andor as a whole, what you think about this episode, what your favorite moments in the episode was. I would love to hear that. Love hearing from you guys. So with that said, everyone, may the Force be with you and stay nerdy.